20 lessons from dealing with chronic groin pain to getting back to full fitness playing with the county this season. So this is following on obviously from my previous video, so if you haven't watched that, check that one out first where I go through my whole journey. So we get stuck into the first lesson. So first lesson is more isn't always better, and this I suppose is from how it actually started in the first place. Was I was chasing numbers every session, trying to get faster constantly. And I suppose speed is probably the big one in terms of more isn't always better. There's a minimal effective dosage in terms of stimulus when it comes to speed that you need to get faster. Once you kind of go past that, you're only really increasing your risk of getting injured. And the faster you get as an athlete, the more force you're putting into the floor, the more force is going through your tissues. And if you're not moving extremely well, you're really increasing your risk of injury. So there's actually, I think, been studies done on it in terms of like how much force goes through your body the faster you get, and once you get past like 9.1 or 2 meters per second and up towards 10, the force nearly exponentially increases. So it's just something to be aware of, and you're nearly always looking for that minimal effective dosage, I think, when it comes to your training, both with conditioning, with training loads, with speed. And it's like you don't need to be going past that, because the more you do, the more risk you getting injured and the more time you have not available to play your sport, which is always the most important thing. Number 2, effective rehab usually isn't fun, and it probably should be an uncomfortable experience. This is something I always kind of get reminded of when I go down to David Gray and work in person, and he takes me through a rehab session, and it's extremely difficult. I'm sweating bullets, mainly because I'm working areas and I'm working through ranges that I haven't had access to before, and they're weak and they're uncomfortable, and those are typically the areas that you need to work on the hardest to actually improve your situation, improve how you move, open up some space, whether it's at the hips, the feet, increase strength in a certain area, or target a tissue that probably hasn't been loaded effectively ever before, simply because of how you're currently moving. And I suppose that's the thing, if you're in chronic pain and you're given rehab and it doesn't feel like it's very challenging at all, and you're just working on basic strength levels, there's chances are it's not the most effective rehab plan for you, and there's a lot of other things that you probably could be doing. So embrace that kind of discomfort, suck it up, and know that it probably is going to be grim at times, but that's typically what's needed sometimes to get you moving well, strong again, and back to full health. The third one, your identity can't simply just be from your GA performance. So there has to be something else going on. If you're fully attached, like I probably was at that stage, to being a GA player, performing, then when things do go wrong, or you do get injured, or you do have to take time away from the sport, it can impact you so much more than if you have more going on outside of that. So for me, that was, again, as I spoke about in the last video, was going traveling, was thinking about like who am I am, like when sport is completely stripped away. Because you have to remember too that when you get out of sport and you hit 34, 35, whatever it is, and you have to stop playing, you need to have other things that you enjoy outside of that. So it could be simple hobbies, it could be playing golf, it could be going traveling, it could be cooking, it could be so many different things, but don't have your whole identity attached to just being a GA player, because it can be taken away from you in a split second, like I found out. Number 4, the comeback isn't just one big moment, it is hundreds of micro decisions made daily. So stack wins day on day and completely trust the process. So it's not just one big moment where you figure something out and you come back. It's a cascade of decisions daily in terms of how you're eating, how you're sleeping, what your health is like, what your relationships are like, your environment, so many different things, that small decisions that you make on a daily basis that eventually stack up to getting you back playing again, back to full health and back feeling good again. So always remember that they might feel like small things in the moment, you don't see a direct upside of them in that moment, but those are the small daily things that actually compound over time to getting you back. So don't underestimate the power of just winning the day or winning the moment in front of your face. 5, it's easier to push through pain than it is to sit with your ego. My ego told me that I wanted to perform and play for Fermanagh. So even when I was in a lot of pain and my body was screaming at me to probably stop, I still wanted to be the guy that was going out there and playing and performing, putting in big performances and getting wins. Pushing through that pain was simple and easy at that stage, whereas the harder decision, and probably the better decision for me at that time, probably would have been pulling back and saying, you know what, I'm gonna have to miss county games in this short term so that I actually can heal and get back quicker down the line. Whereas I ignored that. Pushing through pain was easy, getting injections, kicking the can down the road for a while, but really what happened then was the long-term effect of that was so much greater, and I had so much further of a hill to climb when I got the other side of that, because playing through pain with injections or painkillers or ibuprofen or whatever you're doing, is degrading the tissues. It's probably, first, it's impacting your ability to heal. Like when you get an injection or whatever, it actually decreases the quality of tissues around that area in terms of the collagen, and means that a lot of the more I played through that, the more I was not able to load things in the gym. I was getting weaker in certain areas, certain tissues weren't getting loaded, and then obviously that puts you further down in terms of like how much you have to climb back up. So if you catch it earlier, you'd say, you know what, I know I really want to play at the minute, but I have to think of myself long term. You know, you have to do it for yourself rather than trying to please people all the time, and you know, when it comes to that. So, and then one thing I've read here is letting go of the need to prove yourself is one of the hardest but the most freeing things that you will ever do. 6, you must address your movement strategy if you want to return and actually stay injury free again. So it's one thing giving something time to heal, getting your strength work in, doing a basic generic plan that gets you back playing again. But if you haven't actually addressed the root cause of why that injury occurred, it's just going to happen again. And this is something that I see all the time, is just focusing on strength, getting back, you're pain free, let's go back into full training again, let's go back playing. And then 4 weeks down the line, when the load gets too much again, and you haven't actually improved how your body's moving with a proper coach or a movement specialist or whatever to identify where things are lacking. Like for me, there was a clear lack of internal rotation at my hip. There was differences in terms of how I was putting force into the floor at the foot and the ankle, a lack of stiffness on one side. So that was a key for me, was actually cleaning that up, opening up space in terms of internal rotation at the right side of my hip, improving that elasticity and stiffness on the ground on my left side. And then I was interacting with the floor more effectively, and I was actually becoming more efficient in how I was moving, so that when I came back to play, the groin wasn't kicking up again. I wasn't just overloading those tissues again, because that is what happened. If you're inefficient and you are lacking space somewhere, or you're not moving well, then some tissues are going to be taking on a lot more load. There's going to be muscles and joints or whatever that aren't doing their job effectively, and they're going to become overloaded as soon as the load spikes again. So that is a huge thing. Like, you can be physically absolutely flying, but still very fragile if your movement quality isn't there, your coordination isn't there, your load management isn't there. So that is a huge part of this. 7, no one understands what chronic pain actually feels like until they've lived it. And this is a very important one, because you're going to be talking to people on the regular, friends, family members, coaches, and they are not going to be able to relate to what you're actually going through, because they haven't actually lived and went through it themselves. And that can be tough, because you're trying to explain and say, you know, what you're feeling, how it's making you feel, what emotions are coming up, but really they don't understand it on a deeper level, and that can be difficult when you're constantly getting asked about it. So it's just something to be aware of more than actually trying to fix it, because what can happen is when you're not aware of that and you're constantly wanting everyone to try and understand you and on that deeper level, you just end up becoming frustrated at them and resenting them, which can have then another negative impact in terms of your ability to heal and your ability to stay healthy and stay in a good frame of mind to actually nearly rehab and just continue to focus on your own journey. 8, how you execute your rehab will largely determine your results, and this is huge. Like, you could have the best rehab plan in the world from the best movement specialist, the best coach, but if you're not actually executing what they've given you to a really high level, you're probably not going to be strengthening the tissues that need to be strengthened. You're not going to be opening up the ranges that potentially need to be opened up to improve your efficiency. And when you come back, you're still probably going to be in the same position. So a huge part for me was when I was working with David, or was working with Alan Murdoch, or was working with Aaron Bradley, was they were actually making me video what I was doing in the gym and on the pitch. And they were going through it with me in person and actually talking me through it in terms of what I needed to do maybe better the next session to improve that and actually get more out of the work that I was doing. And that was a huge piece of the puzzle, and it's something that I always see with generic rehab, is like they're just given a plan, you go and do it. And if you actually, sometimes I sit back and watch athletes doing the rehab and it's just a tick box exercise. It's just like, right, I need to get this done, get out the door and go home. Whereas that's going to prolong your rehab journey significantly. So ask questions, be curious, ask for feedback, want more in terms of that side of things, because it's going to have such a huge impact, and it's going to improve and shorten the window that you're actually spending injured, because you're going to be able to adapt and to get stronger and move better a lot faster if you have someone who knows what they're looking at your movement in closer detail. So movement strategy is so important. If it has been a movement strategy problem that has let you down, which likely it has for 90% of people unless it's a contact injury or whatever, identifying that, getting to the root cause of it, and executing well in the gym to get better is absolutely key. 9, playing through pain doesn't make you a hero. Found that out the hard way, big time. Like, you're not there to impress anyone, you're not there to play for someone else, you're there for what you want to actually do, and that's represent your club or your county. You're not going to get any pats in the back or plaudits. Like, people treat you, it was something I think it was maybe Matty Donnelly who was in our podcast, like, regardless of where you're at in terms of pain or injury or sickness or whatever, once you get onto that pitch, you're going to be judged as your best self and you at 100%. So you have to kind of take that into account and weigh up whether it's worth it, and like the trade-offs with playing in pain and not being your 100% self. And again, it probably comes down to ego and always wanting to be on the pitch and playing. Sometimes you have to look at the bigger picture and zoom out, so it makes your rehab journey longer, and you're going to go through more suffering in the long term if you do just continue to just try and play through it. 10, removing timelines and just focusing on your rehab, your sleep, nutrition, your health is the only way. It can get easy to get caught up in setting of a specific time or a date that you want to return. So I want to be back in 6 weeks, I have to be back for that game. Suddenly then when you go through your rehab, and rehab is very up and down, and that's something you have to get comfortable with, is like, it's not going to be a linear process where you just go to the gym and do your sessions and you come back and play and all is rosy. So what can happen is, if you set a date for like 6 weeks down the line and you're 4 weeks in and you're not where you need to be, that's when you start to get frustrated. You start to resent a coach or a manager or whoever's helping you, because you're not where you should be. You have to appreciate and accept that, as I mentioned, rehab's not linear. There's going to be ups and downs. So just focus on winning that day or winning that week or nailing your rehab session and executing it well, and focusing on, are you sleeping well? Are you getting the right fuel in? Are you in the right environments? Your frame of mind and stuff like that is so important. So if you remove the actual date that you're trying to return from and just focus on getting better week on week until you're right, and focusing on gradual exposure and ticking the boxes along the way, you'll remove that frustration and resentment completely, and that in itself will improve your ability to heal and improve your ability to get back faster. 11, the best athletes are proactive, not reactive. So what I mean by this is, this probably doesn't relate to you now if you're in chronic pain and if you're injured. It's more probably related to when you do get back, or for anyone who's watching this who is fit or healthy at the minute. It's better to actually focus on things that maybe need to be improved and identify weaknesses now before it actually becomes a problem. And this is, again, no one really goes after their weaknesses in terms of a strength standpoint or a movement efficiency standpoint until it's a problem. So that's the biggest thing I would say, is identify. You can work with any high level coach and work on these things before they become a problem and improve your efficiency, because there's so many benefits to it that isn't just injury and returning from an injury. Like, if you can work on your movement efficiency, you can become faster for a start in terms of your ability to put force into the floor. You can also become fitter, because the more efficient you are, the less energy you're going to expel moving around the pitch, and the less risk you have of actually picking up an injury when load does spike, which it naturally does in season. So fix and address imbalances before they become an issue. 12, your body reflects your internal state. If you're always anxious, you're always frustrated, you're always resenting someone, you're worried about whether you're going to be fit, you're worried about whether you're going to be back for a certain date, you have stress going on in your life in terms of within work or within relationships, that is going to be reflected in your body in terms of your ability to heal, in terms of pain. The level of pain one person feels with an injury can be completely different to the level of pain that someone else faces with the exact same injury, and that largely comes down to internal stressors and external stressors as well. I'll go down a different rabbit hole here, but say, for example, with your health, like if you've got health issues or you have other things going on internally, that will have an impact on the function of your body and how much pain you experience. If you're always anxious, frustrated, things like that can have an impact on the level of pain you feel. So addressing those kind of things is so important, and like healing requires a specific type of environment. So a lot of people put themselves in that sympathetic state on a daily basis through work, and again through relationships, whatever's going on at home, so many different things. And it could be small things, and it could be just a case of putting yourself in that frame of mind, and your thoughts can have a huge impact on that. Like what you're actually allowing yourself to think on a daily basis can be huge. So for me, it was, when I was in that, it was very difficult not to think like that. It was very difficult not to be frustrated that I wasn't getting back, or get annoyed at someone constantly asking me questions about it, or annoyed that I wasn't sleeping right. So for me, it was like journaling every day and putting yourself in that kind of grateful frame of mind, and finding things outside of the injury that you're actually grateful for. And then you're starting to think more positively in terms of like how you're thinking on a daily basis, which then impacts your ability to heal, your ability to sleep well, and your ability to nail rehab, things like that. So you must, I suppose, try your best to put yourself in that state, and then your environment probably has a big part in that as well. So number 13, no physio or coach will care as much as you actually care and again, this probably goes back to the one that I spoke about already in terms of people relating to you on a deeper level. You nearly have a gut instinct with a lot of things in terms of if you go into a phase of rehab with a physio and your gut's telling you this is not the right rehab, sometimes you have to trust that. If your gut's telling you that you shouldn't play this weekend or you're in the wrong environment and you need to improve things, you kind of have to listen to that. You have to be willing to ask hard questions, be curious, question things with physios or question things with whoever you're working with, and be open-minded to actually changing, because you don't want to waste time. You should demand the best for yourself when it comes to your rehab, when it comes to who you're working with the environment you're in, and trying to remove yourself from that need to kind of impress people or take the easy option, like is another thing, because you're going to waste time and you're going to waste money. So you're the one who cares the most about your situation, so you should demand the best for what you're doing. 14, things like poor sleep, your mood being impacted, a loss of ambition or a loss of drive are sometimes just a normal part of injury and rehab, and that's something you kind of just have to accept. You will go through that, and that's something that probably comes up a lot with athletes who are in chronic pain and have had something for 6 to 12 months or whatever it is or more, is that things will be impacted outside of that in terms of your mood, in terms of your drive, in terms of your relationships with other people, and then that can have a negative impact then on your nervous system and like not just the actual tissue that's injured. So once you're aware of that, you're in a much better position to just accept it and know that it's part of the process, and not actually get frustrated about it and not let it, I suppose, impact you in a negative way when it comes to your rehab. 15, sometimes literally just stepping away is the bravest thing that you can do. And this is, again, there's probably people watching this who aren't, like, it's not a chronic problem, but for those of you who it is a chronic problem, and I know there is a lot of athletes in that boat, maybe 3 or 4 different injuries in a row, or maybe a groin pain that has been impacting you for years, sometimes just removing yourself from the bubble is the best thing you need to do. And I actually had a conversation about this with a friend recently who has been suffering a chronic groin pain and has went through that cycle of coming back, doing the training, getting back into training, doing too much, being injured again, and then head being completely fried with everyone asking them questions about when they're going to be back. You know, we want to see you back, we want to see you playing, and then wasn't able to effectively do his rehab in that team environment. So he just had to remove himself from that and focus on himself and getting his rehab nailed, getting his mind in a good place, getting his health in a good place, so that, again, the environment for healing is a lot better than when you're stuck in that kind of bubble. Emotions are up and down and your sleep's probably not great and you're worrying about what people are saying about you or thinking about you. For me, that was heading away off to Vietnam or to Bali. Obviously that's not as simple for a lot of people, but even just removing yourself from that team bubble for a small period of time can help. 16, healing isn't just physical, it's also emotional and spiritual as well, kind of deep, but it is something that I had to go down that rabbit hole eventually and address different things. In terms of one area that I did was seeing a psychologist throughout that period, and at one stage I got into such a bubble of trying to perfect everything, because when I wasn't sleeping well, I thought, right, I need to just do everything perfectly here. I need to be doing red light before bed, magnesium, getting my phone away, sleep environment, all these, like, I had about 10 different mad rituals to try and sleep perfectly, and I'd get into bed and I'd be staring at the ceiling for an hour or 2 hours, and it was him that kind of just addressed that with me. He was like, you probably need to get out of that mindset of having everything to be perfect to get yourself right. It was just that awareness nearly of it, and I was like, geez, that is probably true. Not everything has to be perfect. Even removing that need for everything to be perfect actually just reduced my stress, and I wasn't just overthinking everything, and I was more relaxed about things, and I was able to fix my sleep and just focus on what needed to be done on a daily basis. So for a lot of athletes, there can be a lot of other underlying things going on that you may need to address outside of training, and they could be impacting you. It could be a fear of anything. It could be anxiety, it could be the identity loss, it could be anger at someone else, it could be resentment with a co-worker, it could be so many different things within daily life, and sometimes they need to be addressed. Now, you mightn't be someone who's in that position, but you may be, and it could be a case of going to, like I did, I went to an applied kinesiologist and we were doing different things with that and getting on different herbal supplements through the scabies that was going on in terms of improving the insomnia that was happening with the psychologist. Like, there are different avenues that I just went down because at that stage I was just stuck and needed something to hold on to. So having help, having support and having accountability with emotional things, with physical things, psychologically, all these different avenues 100% helped me to go alongside the physical stuff that I was doing with Alan Murdoch and David and Aaron, which was huge and a really big part of it. But I felt like it was those other kind of buckets of things as well outside of that that really helped my situation and put me in a good frame of mind, improved my health, working on improving gut health and trying to get me sleep in a really good place as well. So those things all definitely helped. 17, there can be underlying reasons as to why you're always injured in terms of with your health. That's another tangent off from what I'm just after speaking about in terms of gut health is a big thing. There is kind of studies on that as well in terms of when your gut's not in a good place, it can have an impact on like tendon health and things like that. So addressing those, getting bloods done, identifying, like if you could get your bloods done and there could be something glaring jumping out at you in terms of your health that is impacting your body's ability to repair tissues in the body, like with tendon health and collagen fibers and things like that, that's just another avenue to go down. It could be a case of fixing your gut, it could be you're lacking just something major in the body, or there could be an underlying health issue going on there that you haven't even been aware of. So just ensure that you're on top of that side of things as well as the physical side of things in terms of your rehab can be a big thing. 18, managing your load isn't soft, as some coaches or managers might say, like, oh, you're soft, you're stepping out of training. It's a fucking essential part of being an athlete and progressing and adapting to the training that you're doing. Like if your weekly or your monthly loads spike, your body will break, no matter who you are. And we see it NBA and Premier League and AFL. When an athlete goes from a certain weekly volume or load to 50% of that within a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it mightn't kick up in the short term, but down the line, your body is gonna let you know about that. Areas will become overloaded and it's not a problem until it's not. So the 100% top 3 things that you can do as an athlete is, especially if you're coming back from injury, is manage your load. And sometimes that will come with flack from coaches and managers and things not like wanting you to train all the time. But the biggest thing for you is being available on the pitch. If that doesn't align with where your body is at this current moment in time, then it doesn't. And you have to be aware of that and you have to manage that. And it is a case of, like with the GPS or whatever it is, keeping track of what distance you've done in a week, keeping track of what high speed running you've done in a week, what max speed you've done, and making sure that it doesn't go from 0 to 100 within the space of 2 or 3 weeks. That is absolutely key, because there's no amount of health protocols or sleep or red light therapy or fucking ice baths or whatever that's going to paper over excess load on the body. And that's just a fact. So keep in tune with that, manage your load, know where your numbers are at, and progressively increase them over time. And like a good rule of thumb is like not going over 10% in terms of a spike within 1 week. That will have a big impact on your ability to return. 19, we're nearly there. Having the right people in your corner changes everything. I've touched on this already as well. For me, that was going and outsourcing. So when I was within that county bubble and things weren't improving, the rehab wasn't working for me, it is difficult to go outside of that bubble and start going down your own avenue. And that's just what I had to do at that stage, was because I was aware of David Gray and the results he was getting and the athletes he was working with, and the problems that he was seeing on a daily basis were similar to what I was dealing with. So I had to outsource and go to David Gray and go to Alan Murdoch and go to Aaron Bradley, like I suppose coaches that I trusted big time and I knew that would help me. And yes, the investment was quite high, but I was happy enough to put a lot of investment into that because it would get me back playing, rather than not wanting to put any investment or money into that, waste another 6 to 12 months not getting right, and then eventually having to invest in it down the line. Get the right people in your corner early, and as early as you possibly can, and invest in them, and trust the process as much as you possibly can, and just go after it, and be curious, ask questions. And again, as I mentioned before, seek the best for yourself, because there is people out there that have dealt with what you're going through that will be able to help you. So be curious, ask questions, like even people who come to me and I'm able to point them in the right direction now because I've went through a lot of the things that they're going through. Especially if it's a chronic pain and a chronic injury. Continuing to do the same things over and over again is just going to get the same results, and it's going to just leave you more frustrated down the line. So yeah, that's a big one. And the final one, number 20, your biggest setback can become your biggest teacher, and it's really when you see like the most level of growth. That can be difficult when you're in the middle of it to actually see it that way. Something that I really struggled to do was see it that way when I was in the middle of it and was always in pain daily, and I was frustrated that I wasn't able to play and missing league games with the county and missing club championships. But it's such an important part to try your best to see it that way and see it as growth, because anyone that I've seen who's went through, like for example, like multiple ACLs or chronic groin or loads of injuries and they've come out the other side of it, has always seen a huge amount of growth, both as an athlete, if you're working with the right people. Like for me, I feel like I move a lot better now, I'm faster, I'm more agile on the pitch, but I'm also probably a better person the other side of that. I'm a better coach as well. So like the growth that I got from that was huge, and if I hadn't have ever got that injury, I'd probably be a shit coach at the minute. I'd be in the same place where I was as a player. I probably wouldn't be great, like in the same position I probably was back then. And then day to day, I'd probably be more miserable as well. I'd still be caught up in just being a GA player and that being my whole identity. I wouldn't have went travelling to different places and seen that there's a bigger picture here. And my perspective as well on playing GA and why we play GA, I had to dive deeper into those different things, which was unreal, to be honest. So yeah, that's the way I would say to try and see things, is just know that it's going to pass at some stage and you will have learned so much about yourself as an athlete and as a person. And as Alex Mosey says, this will be the story that I will once tell. Chronic pain, it can be a big struggle when you're in the moment, but it can give you so much perspective and patience and education as well out the other side of it. So yeah, that's my biggest 20 lessons. I probably have other lessons there that I couldn't think of at the time, but I think there's a lot in there. There's enough in there for you to be able to take from it and apply to yourself to try and help your situation. So thanks for listening. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, leave a comment, shoot me a message, whatever it is, and I'll see you in the next one. Good luck.